It was cool that you and your husband came. I thought it was so cool.
Capital L. Don. Thank you. Good thing we're not live. We're not live. I was up here today.
Welcome to the Bayport City Council Forum. My name is Marguerite Reinberger. This forum is sponsored by the Stillwater Gazette. In alphabetical order, the three candidates running for two positions for City Council are Brian Delisle, Michelle Hansen, and Patrick McGann. And thank you three for coming. Appreciate it. Alicia Labens, the community editor of the Stillwater Gazette, will be writing up your responses. Will they appear in this week? No. They'll appear in in Friday's newspaper, and for those of you who are watching, I think that's the 19th, as I recall. Yep. So October 19th edition of the Stillwater Gazette. During the 60-minute forum, each candidate will be allowed up to a minute and a half for openings and closings and up to 2 minutes to answer the questions. And I'll decide if I feel there's need for rebuttal, or if you would like rebuttal, then please let me know and I'd be happy to allow it. Julie Amaral will be the timekeeper. She'll hold up cards that say 45 seconds, 20 seconds, and stop. If you're in the midst of a sentence, keep finishing the sentence. She'll be watching for conjunctions, and she does have my permission to yell stop, and we did a lot of it last week at two forums, so we definitely want to put an end to some of these ongoing answers. The Stillwater Gazette has provided all the questions that will be asked, and for the huge audience that is here, please save your applause until the end. And the order of the person will start, as I say, as alphabetical order. Would you please introduce yourself? A minute and a half. Brian Delisle.
I'd like to start by thanking Margot for moderating this for us. My name is Brian Delisle. I've been a lifetime resident of Bayport. The reason I decided to run was a couple of reasons. The first being there was two unopposed candidates running, and I figured why not have some new blood on the council. And as also one of the candidates was not elected, was appointed. Tell you a little bit more about myself. As I said, I was raised in Bayport. My first job was at the skating rink. I worked at NJ's. I'm getting the sign, so I got to hurry up here. I worked at NJ Cafe until it sold. or until the owner died, Neil, and then I sold it for him. Been selling real estate for 15 years. Was on the Bayport Fire Department for approximately 5 to 6 years until I hurt myself. And my time is up.
Okay. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah.
Michelle.
Thanks, Margot. Hello, I'm Michelle Hansen. I currently work full-time as the Director of Project Management and Operations at Redex Research in Stillwater. My husband Ben and I have lived in Bayport for nearly 17 years. Not a whole lifetime for me, but feels like it. I feel fortunate to be raising our children, Calvin and Lainey, in the safe and idyllic small town. During the past 4 years, I've had the honor of representing Bayport's best interests on the City Council, and I'm very proud of our many accomplishments. Among many other things, we have updated the city ordinances, made improvements to Perro Park in the center of town, maintained a virtually static tax levy in spite of increasing costs, communicated continuously through the city newsletter, and hired an ambitious and competent new city administrator. I want to thank you for your confidence in my ability to represent you 4 years ago, and I hope you will allow me to continue to serve you in the city of Bayport for another term.
Thank you. Patrick.
Good evening. I'm Patrick McGann. I'm happy to be here tonight along with the other candidates, and I'm looking forward to a good discussion. I've served on the City Council for about 1.5 years now, and I hope to have the opportunity to serve the citizens of Bayport for another 4 years. I believe my background, my experience, and my civic ideals make me well suited for this role. I'm a lifelong resident of the East Metro, growing up in Cottage Grove and Woodbury, living in St. Paul for a while, and now Bayport for the last 6 years. I'm also a small business owner here. I have a dental practice in Lake Elmo. I see many parallels between my practice and city government, including managing expenses, setting a budget, working as a team, and providing my clients the best service possible, be they patients or residents here. This is achieved through preparation, making informed collaborative decisions so that there are no surprises, and I recognize that while I am knowledgeable, I don't know everything. I depend on the excellent job of our city staff to get me up to speed on things, but what's most important is to listen to the concerns of the residents and take everything into consideration to make sure the right decision is made. Community involvement is important to me. I regularly donate my time and services to the Union Gospel Mission in St. Paul, as well as many other volunteer dental programs for the underserved. And I've also spent some time here at Anderson Elementary educating the students, kindergartners here about the value of good oral health. For these reasons, I believe I have the right qualifications for this role. I've served the city well in the last 1.5 years, and I look forward to the opportunity to continue to serve the residents of Bayport into the future.
Thank you. Well-timed. I'll begin the first question with Brian. The city recently hired an architect to design a new fire hall and expects to spend roughly $5 million. What are your views on the proposed station?
Because of the amount of fire calls that we do have and our areas of service, I do think it is a good idea. I think we may want to look at it as a public safety building instead of just a fire hall. I also think we need to further discuss or figure out how we're going to utilize the old fire hall. That fire hall was remodeled about, I would say, 12, 13 years ago, and we spent a fair amount of money on that. So we have to figure out what we're going to do with that. And I think there's some preconceived ideas for that, and I don't know if they're the best ideas for it. I mean, I don't have the answer right now. I think it's going to take the council to go through that and, make the determinations with that building. I like that that land was free, that we didn't have to pay for it. I think it it might have been a good idea to think about putting it farther out into our service area, Baytown, West Lakeland, so their ISO ratings go down.
Thank you. Michelle?
Okay. So my opinion on the fire station, I think it's something we've needed for a long time in our community. It's not in a safe place where it is right now. My children went to Anderson Elementary, and it was always a concern for their safety when the fire trucks were leaving the station. I think the location is a really good location. It's much more central, and it has a great in and out access point on the corner, so we will have easier access for the trucks getting in and out of the station. $5 million, I don't know where that number came from, but we haven't quite discussed that yet, so I don't know where that number came from. But we will be speaking more about the fire hall. We get to look at the preliminary plans coming up soon, I think next week. So in terms of the old fire building that Brian brought up, we haven't yet decided what we would do with that, but I don't believe we are, there were discussions about moving the police with the fire hall, with the fire department, but we felt that having them more in a central location to the downtown was probably better, but we still have to flesh through those thoughts on that. And I can't remember what else I wanted to mention. One of my concerns, I guess, is how much it's going to cost, obviously, and I don't want to get, I don't think we need a Taj Mahal of fire stations. I think we just need something that's going to serve our purposes now and also into the future, and we need to figure out what that is exactly. But I'd like to look at how to make it environmentally friendly and energy efficient while we're doing that. And I know that that can cost more, so it may mean a smaller fire station if that's what we decide to do. But I have faith in the council that we have right now and the team that we have working on it with the architects to come up with a good plan.
Thank you, Michelle. I will allow it after. I want to finish, Patrick. Brian had asked for a rebuttal, and I'm into enlightening discussion, and I was with the House District forums, and I found it really interesting. So I'll go with Patrick, you get your answer, and then we'll go back to Brian and see what he'd like to say more.
Sure. I fully support the new fire hall. I actually wrote the letter that went out to our state and U.S. representatives that got this process rolling. And thanks to their help, we received significant grants. We're getting the land for free from the state through the prison. Anderson Windows is going to donate $1 million. Xcel Energy is going to move the power lines for us. In the letter, I talked about the existing fire station. I believe it's 70 years old. It's in need of extensive repairs, not to mention the fact that as these emergency vehicles come out, right across the street is an elementary school where a lot of kids are getting dropped off and picked up. So that's a potentially dangerous situation. Anybody who's toured through the fire hall, existing fire hall, can see how crowded it is. So something needed to be done. The new location is going to be at a crossroads, a key crossroads. With the land we're getting for free, the grant money, it's going to help keep the costs down. We're tapping into the financial reserves, the cash reserves that Bayport has to help fund this, and that's what these reserves are for. And then with the cost sharing between Oak Park Heights and then the townships, the actual cost of the citizens of Bayport is going to be minimal. And the value we get from this new fire hall, I think, is going to far outweigh any expenses.
Thank you. Julia, I'm going to give Brian up to a minute to add.
Okay, I just wanted to reiterate something Michelle said. Even with the fire hall gone, I still think we need to put a stoplight out at this corner. And I know that the DOT has been resistant, but I still think it's something that we should do. You know, if we're not going to build the Taj Mahal, like Michelle said, why can't we build a smaller station farther out there. I am 100% for a station. I worked out of that station for 6 years. I know we need a new fire station, but we also have our Oak Park Heights, our Baytown, and West Lakeland Township that depends on us.
Do you want to say anything else? Okay. I'll begin the next question with you, Michelle. Bayport's utilities infrastructure is aging. How should the city go about replacing and paying for the needed infrastructure upgrades?
Well, we have already actually given the go-ahead to the engineer to start assessing what our infrastructure looks like right now. So we need to first better understand that so we can come up with a plan for when and how we will need to make updates. My understanding of the funding is that we have plenty of funds in our CIP because the city's been very fiscally responsible. So we have some set aside for the water and sewer infrastructure improvements that we're talking about.
Thank you. Patrick?
We recognize that, Bayport has been around for a while, and the infrastructure is getting old. Anybody who remembers last winter and how Main Street was dug up, it was kind of a freaky winter, but recognizes the fact that things are getting old, they're starting to wear out. So I guess reiterating a bit of what Michelle said, we authorized to have a study done to assess the infrastructure. It's going to be very thorough, and it's going to give us a list of items that have to happen immediately, things that should happen in the near future, and things that can wait a while. And so that will allow us to budget and plan for upgrades and getting our infrastructure to a point where it's reliable. I believe it's important to be out in front on this as much as possible and make sure that we get to things and get things upgraded before they fail. It's going to be a lot cheaper and a lot less of a hassle to take care of things before they fail and just get in there and get them done and get them ready for the next however many years.
Thank you. And Brian?
I actually agree with both of my fellow candidates that it is something that we need to do. However, I don't believe that it should be assessed to the residents. That the water and sewer fund, as Logan said at budget time, is an enterprise fund. What comes in goes out. I think that fund should be used for the expenditure of upgrading our infrastructure.
Thank you. I want to, when you look at me, either say thank you or whatever. I'm telling you, I had a forum one time where there was this pause, and so I moved on. He yells, "I'm not done yet." I'm thinking it was
As nervous as
You
I
are
am,
from my perspective,
I might
times.
do that too.
But anyhow, yeah, next question. You interpret what I use as the word future, okay? So this will be your interpretation of future. What concerns do you have about Bayport's future, and what, if anything, as a council member, can you do to address these concerns? And I'll begin with Patrick.
Well, it's a pretty broad, pretty general question, the future of Bayport. Concerns I have, we have a few things going on right now. We need to eventually complete the development of Inspiration, the housing development up on the hill. And there's been some back and forth on that, a lot of differing viewpoints. We have a plan from about 10 years ago. We recognize that things have changed, and so it's a matter of reconciling the views of the residents there and the reality of today to come up with something that's going to work for everyone. We have a bridge that's going to be done here in a couple of years, and the important thing is to try to anticipate the changes, and I think we'll probably see increased access from residents of western Wisconsin. There's going to be a bicycle loop between that bridge and 94, so we may see some more bicycle traffic. I think those can be positives, but, you know, too much vehicle traffic can be a negative too. So anticipating those and plans to deal with those is going to be important. We have a contaminated groundwater, TCE or trichloroethylene, that needs to be mitigated, and that's going to get stepped up here recently. So the important thing is to make sure, obviously, that the water we provide our citizens is as clean and healthy as can be, but also look at some state funds to pay for, ideally, all of it. Those would be three key things I see coming up in the near future for Bayport.
Thank you. Brian?
The number one thing is our commerce. We have 10 or 11 buildings right now that are either for sale or empty. And that should be the council's and the administration's number one issue, is getting, whether it be TIF funds or grants or some funding from wherever to get people into these vacant or for sale properties. Like Patrick said, we're going to have a lot more traffic here, and the way it's going right now, we're losing businesses left and right. We got 5 on Fifth Avenue that are, excuse me. We have 3 on Fifth Avenue that are empty, and 6 or 7 of them on 95, I'm sorry. So that in my opinion is number one, and that's what we need to work on.
Thank you. Michelle?
Thanks. I actually agree with a little bit of what each of them said. First thing I jotted down was the TCE issue that's definitely looming on the horizon for us. Not our fault at all, but there are TCEs that are in our aquifer, and we have to do something to our well number 3, I believe it is, so that we can make sure that everyone has safe drinking water. Right now, they aren't at a high level, but they are watching them closely. And we have a plan and have discussed dealing with it in the same way we did earlier when we had TCEs in our well number 2. We added an air stripper. And so we're needing to, in the future, figure out how best to clean that water up, likely connecting it to the air stripper that already exists. And again, as Patrick said, waiting and looking for some funding for that to make sure that it's covered. The other thing that I jotted down was the same as what Brian talked about, just making sure that our downtown businesses are thriving. We're working on it already, but I'd like to see even more being done to make sure that they have whatever kind of funding or assistance that they need, and make sure that Bayport continues to be a town that people want to start businesses in. So,
Thank you, and I'll begin the next question with Brian. A new concept plan recently came forward for Phase 2 of the Inspiration development. How should the city approach development in this area?
I haven't studied it a lot, but I did look at the plans that were put forward by Jeff Haas with senior housing. There's a waiting list at Croydale, and maybe it's a good time to put some more senior housing in up there. That's what the council decided to do when they platted that land, so that's what we need to do. Thank you.
Michelle?
there's a lot of things we have to think about with this new plan. Yes, it was platted that way, but it was possibly not quite what Jeff has brought to us as a vision right now. I mean, they did add a higher level care part to the facility that wasn't there before. So I think discussions are just starting on this, and there's a lot more that needs to be worked out. we don't want to change the feel of that neighborhood and give it, add any safety concerns so we need to really think about it before we move forward with anything. And we just discussed this only, like a week or so ago, so we haven't had a lot of time to think it through and come up with options for it. But we may also be stuck with, what was already planned there. So, I mean, there's a lot of things we have to still think through.
Thank you. Patrick?
So the Inspiration development has come up a couple times since I've been on the council. About a year ago, we talked about whether or not to bring in a national builder to complete the residential portion, and now we have a proposal to develop the multi-unit senior housing. And in both situations, what I looked at was the original documents for Inspiration that were drafted 8-10 years ago, and then these most recent proposals and how much of a departure is there. And then as a council, we decided, ultimately voted that bringing in a national builder was too much of a departure from the original intent. Now we're taking a look at senior housing, and from what I understand, the original intent was just 55-plus housing, individually owned, and the proposal that's before us is some housing for independent living, some for memory care, and some for assisted living. And there would be employees coming and going, potential for emergency calls, that kind of thing. And that's what the concerns a lot of the residents have expressed. So I touched on this a little bit in a previous question. I think the key is going to be to start with our original documents that were passed 8-10 years ago. That's our starting point. Take a look at things that have changed since then, and listen to residents and determine what's going to be the best option for all of our residents, but also Bayport in general.
Thank you. And Brian, you would like a minute, up to a minute.
I gave my opinion based on what I have seen and from what Jeff had proposed. I haven't reviewed what the plans were or what the platting was 10 years ago. I did know that there was multi-housing platted for up there. I know that Jeff builds a very nice product. Fox Ridge on 36 is a beautiful building, in and out. If it was possible, there's another opportunity for commerce up there too, such as, gas stations or an office complex on the main level and apartments above it, or something of that.
Thank you. I'll begin the next question with Michelle. What role, if any, should the city play in encouraging and supporting business development and redevelopment?
What role should we play,
If any.
if any? I guess we need to help mostly, I think, first we have to understand what's going on with the businesses, like Peril Creek Tavern doesn't seem to be able to stay in business. Do what we can to help with funding and encouraging businesses to come to town. I guess I'm not an expert on that, but luckily our city administrator is very good at it, so we're gonna have to rely on him to help guide us through that.
Patrick.
I think the city should take a very active role. If we look at what's been happening lately, Anderson Windows, we facilitated Anderson getting I believe a forgivable loan through the state for $500,000 so they can expand. That's going to add 100 jobs. I think the project is going to be about $18 million for a new product line. The city staff is currently working with some of the business owners and other landowners here for the land between Woody's and Not Just a Cafe to get that area developed in some fashion In my opinion, it's a bit of an eyesore right now, so city involvement will ensure that what goes in there is going to be beneficial to the residents and also beautify downtown. We're looking at bringing in somebody who wants to put in a grocery store and a deli just up the street. I think that's going to provide a valuable service. I know it will for me, right here in town. And I'd like to continue that, and I think that's a very key role with city government to make sure that all many services, restaurants, retail, whatever, are provided for in our businesses here.
Thank you. And Brian?
That was one of my main point earlier, was we have to get involved. Council, administration, outside help. Our 3rd Street and 5th Avenue business corridors need a lot of help. The city can't survive if it doesn't have commerce. And yeah, I know we have Andersons there, but you never know, so.
Thank you. I'll begin the next question with Patrick. The city has considered ways to beautify downtown. What, if anything, should the city do to make downtown more attractive?
Sure. Well, we've taken a few steps. When I respond, I'm looking at you, even though I know the camera's up there, but I have a hard time looking at an inanimate object when I'm talking. So, we've taken a few steps already with, well, a pretty significant step with the work we've done on Perro Park. I think that was definitely getting run down. The hockey rink, the boards were deteriorating to the point where they were even dangerous, and some of the grass in the ball field was looking pretty rough. So work's underway on Perro Park. That's right on the main street. It's kind of a centerpiece for the city. I think it's important for that to put on a good face for the city. The hanging baskets has been very popular. Our Mel Horak, our Public Works Director, says it's not that big of a deal to have some people come out and water periodically to make sure those are looking good. Since we introduced it, we've had many residents donate for additional hanging baskets. So that's something we're definitely looking at continuing. And then getting back to my previous response, we've got the open lot and kind of older-looking buildings in that area between Woody's and Not Just a Cafe that I think can definitely be improved upon, something that is functional and useful, but also much more attractive.
Thank you. Brian?
I think we have done a good job with beautifying the downtown district, and the Perro Park remodel was a good idea. I don't know if we needed to spend as much money on it. And I'm gonna go with Patrick again on the lots between the Greystone and Not Just a Cafe. And that's all.
Thank you. Michelle?
Patrick is so eloquent, it's so hard. I just want to
Yes.
say ditto when
Yep.
he talks, because he does
I
such a
almost
good
did.
job. I
We
know.
got 25 minutes left. Let's all go to the ditto. But
Yeah, I jotted down all those, as he was saying them, I'm jotting the same things down. I think we've done a great job at the lead of the mayor, actually, St. Orr. She's had great ideas for putting in benches throughout the city that I think has really helped make it feel more walkable and friendly. And the flower baskets were another nice touch. I'm very excited about the Perro Park improvements. There will now be steps that you can take down from the sidewalks. You don't have to try to tumble your way down the hill. And a beautiful sign will be put in that's similar to the one at Lakeside Park to help give cohesiveness between the parks so that you can tell that they're all part of Bayport. So I'm hoping that comes in soon. Everything was supposed to be done by the end of September, so we're still eagerly awaiting that. Of course, a big thing that I've been concerned about, just like everyone else, is that empty building that sits next to NJ Cafe. We have to do something with that. We tried purchasing at one point, didn't go through. Now we have some other plans in the works, so hopefully we can get something going to beautify that part of town. The other thing we've thought about, and it's not necessarily a beautification, but it also helps the downtown businesses, is thinking about putting some signage up. I don't know if you've seen them, and I was just in Pepin, and they have them, but they're signs that help give you direction to, oh, if you go this way, it's the library, go this way to Lakeside Park on the corners, so that might help make it even more friendly and
Thank you.
inviting. Mhm.
I just wanted to know what plans have been made for the vacant building.
Nothing right now.
Oh, okay.
No,
I thought you said
No,
we have some
we're trying
plan-
to work with
Oh,
downtown
okay.
people that
I'm-
want to purchase those. No, we don't
Okay,
have any plans
okay.
yet.
I thought you said
We
you
did
had-
try a couple, maybe almost 2 years ago, to flat out purchase it, but
Yep. Yeah, I remember
didn't
that.
go through.
I'll begin the next question with Brian. The Bayport City Council has been making some ordinances more restrictive. For example, cars can no longer be parked in front of a home more than 24 hours, and grass may be no more than 6 inches tall. Do you agree with the council's approach, or is it putting undue restrictions on residents? And explain your answer.
I was one of the reasons they did that ordinance for a car being in my front yard.
Oh,
So,
congratulations.
no, I agree it needed to be done, and, ordinances like that, you know, vacant housing ordinances and lawn ordinances and, car ordinances need to be put in place. But I think it should be more of a council decision or, a group decision, a committee decision, rather than a city administrator and a lawyer's decision. So, yeah, I agree with the code compliance stuff that has changed, but I think they could have went at it a different way.
Thank you, Michelle.
I guess I'm not sure what that means, because the city council was involved in the decisions for the ordinances, so.
You guys passed the ordinances.
No, we had discussions about them, and we all decided what we wanted to do. No one was telling us anything, but, so we did. We had meetings, and we discussed what the possibilities were for the different ordinances, and we all agreed as a team, which we do a lot, that they made sense. They help the officers and the staff follow through, because now there's actually, steps that need to be taken when someone goes outside of the ordinances. So it was really just to help that process. In the past, it was always just sort of, someone might complain, and then what do you do? And so it really just cleaned all of that up and made it a better system, I think, so.
Thank you. Patrick?
One of the ideals, I guess, the mayor has always stressed is no surprises, and I definitely agree with that. So whenever it comes to making a decision that's going to affect the residents here, we want to make sure that it's introduced and discussed, and residents have the opportunity to give their feedback, whether it's an email, phone call, or coming to one of the city council meetings. So, with each of these steps, we followed that process and didn't, as far as I'm aware, didn't get a whole lot of feedback. The ordinances are really geared towards, making sure a certain property doesn't become a blight on the neighborhood, whether it's out-of-control grass or a dumpster that's been sitting there for 6 months. It's not being used. Vehicles on the road can be a hazard as far as emergency vehicles getting through in the winter, not being able to effectively plow around those vehicles. And the intent behind them is really to help raise awareness of things that we feel are important. So if we recognize something going on, police aren't going to walk out there and slap a fine on people. We're going to have a talk to them and remind them that this needs to be corrected. And it's going to have to go through quite a process before any kind of a fine is levied. And I would anticipate that I'd be surprised if any fines are actually levied. But it's important to have these ordinances there just so we can communicate what we feel is important for the residents of the city.
Thank you. Begin the next question with Michelle. The city recently invested in improving Peril Park. Some of you have alluded to that. Evaluate the city's approach to parks and open space. What, if anything, would you do differently?
Well, I've been integral in the whole Peril Park improvement, so not sure I'd do anything differently. I think we do a great job right now. We do have to invest a little bit in Lakeside Park because what my kids always called the wooden park, if anyone knows what it looks like, that part of the structure is in need of upgrades so that we can be safer. But I think we have a great plan and we're doing well already, I guess. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'll let Patrick explain it much better. No, I'm just kidding.
Should we just give him your 2 minutes? Is that what you want us to do?
Michelle and I obviously are on the council together, so we here I have a lot of the same discussions, so our answers may be somewhat similar. Well, I guess when it comes to Peril Park, about the only thing I would do differently is maybe do it 3 years ago.
I'm just going to evaluate the city's approach to parks and open space generally. Peril Park was just an example of,
Okay.
Where you had improved. So if
Okay.
you want to go even broader.
Well, I say that I fully support the approach the city is taking, transforming Peril Park, beautifying it, putting a nice granite marker out there, labeling it, and making it accessible, and updating things and planning for the future and partnering. Anderson Windows is making a sizable donation of windows and doors, I believe, for that park. And then, I guess getting back to a little bit tongue-in-cheek, what I do differently as far as doing it 3 years ago, back when contractors were a little hungrier back then. Nowadays, we're sometimes having a hard time getting enough bids to do things because contractors are busy. And we'll solicit bids and we'll get, not as many responses as we'd like, or they'd be higher than we'd like. And so that forces us to take another look at things and reevaluate and work a little harder to make sure that it's done affordably.
Thank you, and Brian.
Patrick reminded me of something with our parks and bids. 2 years ago, the city decided to put a boarding dock down on 4th Avenue, which was a great idea for the residents of Bayport, but did not get one single bid and spent way too much money on it. It's a nice dock, it's heavy, Mel spends a lot of time moving it in and out. If they would have gotten bids, Flo out of McGregor, Minnesota probably would have given it to the city, or very reasonable because they like the advertisement that they can put on their docks. And that's who Hudson has. To go to Peril Park, that ball field needed to be done 30 years ago. It's been bad since I was a little kid. I don't think I would have spent as much money, but I am aware that there was donations involved, and it's going to be nice when it's done.
Thank you. Patrick, next question begins with you. The city banned feeding wild animals and authorized a deer hunt to cull the deer herd in Bayport this fall. What do you think of the city's approach to managing the deer population?
Well, as a resident of the Point, I've seen firsthand the explosion in deer population. I think the construction on Highway 36 and the bridge is destroying a lot of their habitat, and a lot of them are migrating into town. And the last thing I want is a deer motorcycle collision that results in severe injuries or a death. The deer population can be a nuisance in the fact that they eat people's plants and flowers and stuff. but, certainly the bigger concern is safety. Feeding the deer encourages them to stick around, and they keep coming back. If they don't have a source of food, they'll go somewhere else. The organization that we contracted to do the deer culling is free to the city. They're very responsible. A lot of them are law enforcement, and the meat is donated. So I realize that not all citizens are in favor of that plan, but I've got to look at the safety of the residents of Bayport as number one, and that's why I voted in favor of it.
Thank you. Brian?
I am actually not 100% in favor of it. But if they're going to do it, I think it needs to be done responsibly. I don't think we need an overkill. I think there's other spots that we can, the cemetery is one, prison area, behind the bank. I mean, I don't think they necessarily just have to do the point if they're gonna do it. And I would hate for the herd to die. And actually, there's quite a herd between Anderson's and Lakeside Park on Rick Schneider and McPherson's land. That's all I got.
That's fine. Thank you. Michelle?
I was actually the one person on the council that was hesitant about the deer culling event, but asked for more information and better understanding about how and why we needed to do it. I don't live on the point, I live on the other end of town, and we have at least as many deer over there, so they eat my bushes too. But I was hesitant, because I'm not a hunter, and I'm not one that thinks we need to kill other beings just because we have guns and they don't. But we had to look out for the safety, like Patrick said. So the firm that we did hire convinced me that they were experienced and could see the benefit of doing it, and that it was a good thing. And I believe they've actually already started it. I'm not sure we've gotten any feedback yet on how it's gone, and maybe we do find another part of town that needs to be done as well after this, see how this goes. But yeah, I at first was hesitant, but I did get all of the facts, and it helped me understand that it was a necessary step. So I did vote in favor of that as well. And of course, the feeding, Patrick already covered how that's just going to bring more, and they're going to rely on you for that food. So we need to, I know it's beautiful to watch the deer and all the other animals, but we need to regulate that as well.
Thank you. Next question, I'll begin with Brian. Name one action taken by the council in the past 2 years that you disagreed with, and what would you have done differently?
I only get one?
Yep, we only have 2 minutes.
Could have one of mine. Just kidding.
Okay. The boat dock. That was one of the times that, the city set a committee up, and, the Riverfront Committee or whatever it was, and one of the suggestions was to put in a boat dock, and they pay $6,000 for a dock, and they could have got one cheaper and better and nicer. So that'll be my one complaint.
Okay, thank you. Michelle?
That's a really hard question when you're on the council, we work so well. Everyone asks good questions and thinks through everything, and I think it's really hard to pinpoint anything that I would go back and say, I wish we wouldn't have done that. So maybe
Fair
Patrick
enough,
will
that's
come up
fine.
with a good one, and I'll agree to that, but
Yeah.
I've been on the council for 4 years, so you'd think there'd be something, but I can't. It's good, though. We'll keep it shorter, right?
Patrick?
Yeah, I agree. It's a tough question. I have the advantage of those two answering first, so I can think about it for a few minutes. So I appreciate that. The only thing I can think of, and this is a potential way of doing things differently, we were working with the residents here, I believe, on First Avenue South, on potentially extending sewer to their property and different ways to do it. And I think the city engineer estimated it to be about $50,000. We got put out for bids. We got one bid for $100,000, and we decided, well, that's not going to work. So we kind of put it on the back burner while the property owners went out and got their own estimate from somebody for about $50,000. So I guess it just makes me wonder a little bit why that other lower bid didn't get brought in originally. Very well could be nothing to do with the way we went about things. But if there are other avenues for getting the word out that we're looking for bids on certain projects, then certainly we want to reach out to as many contractors as we can to make sure that we're getting the most and lowest bids possible.
Thank you.
The Hayner bidding issue actually brings up a good point with the docks. I just don't know how, as a city, we can get one bid for $6,000 and just say, okay, do it. When there's, and it's not just that, it's other stuff that we get two bids for and we just spend the money. Well, that's just not the five people's money here. And I'm not, I'm not trying to, but I think bidding has been an issue in the past. And it's not just this council, it's been councils in the past. That, they one or two bids and, okay, we'll spend the money.
Thank you. I'm going to do moderator discretion. I'm taking it down to 1 minute just because of our time. Michelle, beginning with you, 1 minute. If elected, what are your top 3 priorities for the next tenure?
Top 3. Oh boy, I don't have any time to think. Well, obviously getting the fire station completed within a reasonable budget. We got to work on the TCE issue. If we would have been allowed notes, it would have been a lot easier. Such a bad memory. What else do we need to focus on? Obviously, I think the economic development, just making sure we don't have empty businesses downtown.
Thank you. Patrick.
All right, thank you, Michelle.
For giving you ideas.
Yeah, the fire station is a big project, and so we need to make sure that that's, the right steps are taken and the money is spent, expenses are kept to a minimum and the money is spent wisely. I'm excited about the potential for economic development across the street here for the empty lot and beautifying that area and making it more valuable to the residents here. And then making sure that this the TCE water contamination is handled effectively and at a minimum or no cost to the residents.
Thank you. And Brian.
As I've said all night, economic development. We need businesses on 3rd Street and 5th Avenue. Number 2 would be getting, you said 5 years? Next 5 years?
No, just your priorities.
Oh, okay.
Within a tenure, meaning
Oh,
how long
okay.
you're on it as a council member.
Okay, it would be great to get Inspiration built out. It's not gonna happen, but moving forward on it would be nice to get a little more tax base. And then I would probably say, water, the TCEs. As a bladder cancer survivor, I know what TCEs can do to somebody. That's one of the number one causes for bladder cancer, so.
Thank you. I'm going to begin the closing statements, a minute and a half, and I'll begin with Patrick.
Okay. Well, I talked about a lot of my things in my statement during the discussion here. First, I'd like to thank the Gazette for putting this forum together. Anything that facilitates discussion on our issues is certainly a good thing. I'm in a bit of a unique position that I'm running for re-election here after being on the council for only 18 months, but in that short time period, I've come a long way. And looking at the accomplishments we've made at the council, I believe I've earned the opportunity to serve for another 4 years. When I came on the council, we didn't have a city administrator, basically the CEO of the city. And after a thorough interview process, the city council as a whole was able to work together and unanimously agree that Logan Martin was the right person for the job. And I think bringing Logan here has been a huge success. Looking in the future, I see many challenges and many opportunities. We talked about inspiration, making sure that's developed the right way. We talked about the infrastructure, making sure we're staying out in front of that and addressing the major issues before they become a problem. As far as opportunities, the land between Woody's and Not Just NJ Cafe, bringing in the grocery store, leveraging the additional accessibility from the bridge that'll be done in 2 years. So, in conclusion, I see a bright future for Bayport. I feel that we are well positioned to handle the issues and seize opportunities that are coming our way. It will be my honor to continue to serve on the City Council, and I'm asking you for your vote on November 4th. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle?
Thanks. Having been through a forum before, I remember that a lot of the topics get covered, so I kept mine short. We live in a great town. Bayport has so much to offer, and I want to do my part as a citizen to give back. I've learned a lot in my first term, but I still don't claim to know it all. However, as history shows, you can count on me to listen and ask questions and do my best to make reasonable and fair decisions for our community. If you like what you've seen from the council in the last 4 years, please vote for me. It would be my honor to continue to represent you and the best interests of Bayport. Thanks.
Thank you, and Brian?
I'd like to start by saying, as my first forum, I'm surprised how nervous I have been. I'm usually, and most people that know me in town know that I'm usually outspoken. I'd like to thank Margot for moderating. She does a great job at all the cities, and she's been doing it for years. I really think we need to focus on our economic development, and I think that needs to be a priority. I love the town. I'm never going to leave. I'd love a chance to be a council member.
Thank you. I will say, and I've never said this before at a forum, but all three of you were very impressive. I mean, a lot of thought have gone into your responses and your reasons for running, no question on it. Valley Access Channels will have several replays of this specific forum on Channel 16, then on Channel 15, November 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So, wow, you'll get to see yourselves a lot. On behalf of the Stillwater Gazette and community editor Alicia Labens, timekeeper Julia Amaral, and myself, we want to thank you for coming, and thanks for joining us, and thanks for joining us at home.
Right on the dot. You're good. So are you related to the teacher, Mr. Amaral? Are you? Awesome. What's he doing now?
I wasn't trying to
Some of the stuff where you visit that days like the house, all real well thought out stuff, yeah.
I've never had that problem at one of our,